Episode 12, Ramifications. Julia and Quentin go to Mayakovsky's to try to figure out how to bring back Alice, but he tells them that it would take over 100 master magicians to fuel a spell like that. Or some magical batteries. After some convincing, they are able to use the batteries to reunite Nif and Alice with her shade, and once again, Alice is back in the flesh. But let's just say she's less than pleased to be human again. So Quentin gets put on a 48-hour freeze from her because his very presence is extremely upsetting. Elliot finds Quentin and asks for the button, but Quentin doesn't have the button anymore. Quentin did learn from the dragon that the first portal to Fillory is open, the grandfather clock that the Chatwins first used to go to Fillory. The very same one that is on the cover of the Fillory books, and the same clock that was at Quentin's Yale interview. In Fillory, Josh is the only remaining child of Earth, which means he's the next king. He decides not to do the crowning ceremony and just begins his reign with the slogan, Hakuna Matata. No worries if the mountains aren't here, just erase them from the maps. And if the beavers have problems, get them braces. This is the reign of 420 in Fillory. Julia goes to Katie to apologize for her unhinged actions and asks her to be her break as she still doesn't have her shade. Katie agrees and tells her what's been happening with John and the fact that Reynard seems to have an unhealthy obsession with the Lady Underground. Julia suggests that they lure Reynard out by pretending like Persephone has come back to Earth and then also training John up so he can use his powers against Reynard. Margot astral projects to Josh, telling him, "Hey dummy, I'm not banished, I'm just trapped in the fairy realm looking for Fen. You need to go get Wrath, Abigail's servant, to get a potion to help me get out of here." Penny and Sylvia, his child supervisor, find the fountain to the poison room. And this is where we find out Sylvia's motivations for wanting to go to the poison room. Apparently, every living person's book stops and then has 20 blank pages, something the librarians have been calling the Great Blank Spot. Something catastrophic happens in the next few weeks, and she wants to read her own book because, as a librarian, there might be some more information in her book. The librarians have a belief that when your book is written, your fate is sealed, but she witnessed Penny's book be reshelved 39 times, a la time loop, so there are exceptions. They both enter the poison room. Reynard knows about John going to see Katie and gives him a little present in retaliation. It's a box that contains the ear of John's wife. Reynard is gleeful about the effect that he has on others, even if it is his own son that he's hurting. Quentin and Elliot go to Vancouver to find the grandfather clock and are met with a superfan. Inside his house, he has a ton of Fillory paraphernalia. Quentin and the superfan talk about their shared love for Fillory when the fan brings up that he didn't enjoy the whole Jane becoming the Watcherwoman thing, saying Jane would never do that. It was never mentioned in the books that Jane was the Watcherwoman. The reason he knows this is because the superfan isn't just a fan, he's Umber. Martin didn't kill him and made a deal with him to fake his death and run away and cut his losses with Fillory. And now he's focused on making a new pocket world, Cuba. Umber laughs at them for wanting to fix Fillory. It was never meant to be fixed. The children from Earth were meant to be like reality stars. Fillory was originally made from both order and chaos, but without him, only chaos remains. And if Ember is not entertained, he might do something crazy like, say, turn people into rats. Quentin tells Umber that he should stop hiding like a coward and come back to Fillory. But Umber only wants to move up and onwards. Fillory is on its last legs, and Ember is more likely to crush it like a petulant toddler than to fix it. Elliot appeals to him saying, "If you won't fix this, can you at least let us try?" Umber agrees and gives them access to the grandfather clock. Persephone always shows up on Earth with a lightning storm and in a particular area of France. So all Julia and Katie have to do is create a light storm in France and hope that John's trained up enough to take out Reynard. But John decides that he can't go through with this plan and sends Julia away and makes Katie extract the god powers from inside of him, ending his suffering and allowing him to join his wife. Penny and Sylvia make it inside the poison room, and we find out it's called that because there's literal poison in the air. Penny finds the book for Katie, and Sylvia finds hers, only to discover that the great blank spot isn't in her book. She's meant to die in the poison room. Penny barely makes it back to Katie, giving her the book before he collapses and gets put inside a recovery ward at Brakebills. Being in the poison room irradiated him so much that his body has now developed Cancer Plus. Josh gets the potion for the fairy realm, but before he can use it, Prince S shows up demanding his dad. Before Josh can explain that King Idri has become a rat, the Lorians take action and start taking out the Felorian guards. This is not a time for Hakuna Matata. Josh ends up making a smoke bomb to knock out the Lorians, but unfortunately exposes himself too. But luckily, due to all of his time using substances, it doesn't knock him out, and rather, it just gives him the ability to see into the fairy realm. At this point, he takes the potion, joining Margot in the fairy realm. Julia and Katie have set up the trap for Reynard, putting John's essence inside a bullet. All they have to do is have Katie run distraction with Reynard so that Julia can line up a shot. Reynard falls for the fake Persephone and shows up, but before Julia can take a shot, guess who shows up? If you guessed Persephone, you would be right, because apparently Reynard is her son. That's right. Reynard, the bad little trickster god, has mommy issues. Persephone asks Julia to have mercy and warns her that there are consequences for killing a god. Julia ends up having mercy, and Persephone takes Reynard away. In exchange, Persephone gives Julia back her shade. Now that the 48 hours are up, Quentin is allowed to see Alice again. Alice is still struggling with being incarnate again, and all of the knowledge that she learned as a Niffin is rapidly leaving her mind. On top of this, she is having to learn magic from the very beginning. But Quentin tells her, "You're Alice freaking Quinn. Anything you put your mind to, you can do." Elliot is working on making a plan to conquer Fillory, hypocritically sounding a lot like the Beast.